And we're finally live. Hey, Robert, how you doing today? I'm Ed Parcaut. I'll get to you. Sorry, I'm a little new. Well, we had some technical issues, which we always do these days. Oh, he just lost them again. Somebody must be calling him on his phone. That's the problem about using sometimes your phone and your stuff that, people call you on it and that kind of stuff, and it cuts you off. So, all right, good now? We good to go?
I hope so. If you want, I can switch over to the computer.
We're fine for right now. If it becomes an issue, we'll kick you off. We'll do something else. But anyway,
okay.
So for most of you who don't know, Real Estate Jerky, we're a radio show. We've been on the air for the last almost 3 years now. And we have people on it's on Saturdays, 12 to 1, and Sunday replays 10 to 11. And then occasionally, sometimes things come up and then we turn into podcasts on Monday. Well, I'm like, there's a lot more information because people don't realize that even though it's an hour show and we have a guest on it, you only get about 10 to, each segment 10 to 12 minutes. So there's not a lot of time to talk about stuff. And so I want to make sure that from now on with our lives, we have people back on from the weekend and talking about kind of what we talked about and to go more in depth. That's why I'm doing this whole Real Estate Jerky live now. So Robert, you were on last weekend. We were talking about first-time home buyers and other stuff. And I think it's important for people to know that you shouldn't wait. You should go buy a house now. You should be looking. Once you're able to buy a house, you should look into that. Or once you think about it, you should start the process. What are you seeing out there for first-time home buyers?
Well, with first-time home buyers, there is a lot of competition. It doesn't matter which marketplace you're in right now. It seems like even though there was a downturn in some of the economy, most of the economy is doing better than it ever has. So obviously home prices are up. Plus, they're also selling above asking price. If you're in a competitive market, there's a few instances where I've seen where maybe a home was listed, just too high, and it kind of sat on the market for a while, and then you can come in just a full price offer. But for most purchases, it's going to be anywhere from 10 to 15,000 over list is the person's going to get it.
Is that because of isn't it lower to get more people to bid on it?
Correct. Yeah. So median house price right now is about $350,000. If you have anything slightly below that, you're going to get a ton of traffic. I think the lowest I've seen one recently was about $276,000, which is unheard of in this market. And you could have 30 people in a weekend come through to take a look at that house.
Right. And I was bringing this up with somebody else about how because of the lack of inventory and the lack of building we've had in California, and if people don't know, we're in the Central Valley, it has caused home prices to go up so much. I mean, we went up 14% last year in our area. That just causes more people not to be able to afford homes, right, as it keeps going. So right. That price point you were talking about, $279, unheard of, because there hasn't, everybody's $350, $400 in that range in a house that you want to buy, because most people want a 3.2. A 2.1 would be a little different, but most people have kids are going to be growing. The first time homebuyers, they're actually growing their family. They're not just going to be their permanent home forever, right?
Well, yeah, and nowadays I don't think they build. Occasionally they'll build something less than a 3.2, but standard house 3.2, 1,500 square feet. For first-time home buyers, though, if they are looking for something that is like a 2-bedroom, 1-bath, looking in the older neighborhoods, you'll find those. Some of them have already been added on to, but yeah, definitely first-time home buyers, if you're willing to stay in it for another 5 to 10 years and that 2-bedroom, 1-bath works, then there's not going to be as many buyers out there for that. So that's one advantage.
For me, when I talk to people, the first thing they should do is make sure, on the lender side, if people don't know, I'm a lender and you're a real estate agent. When someone calls you, I assume the first thing you tell them is, are you pre-qualified, pre-approved, right? Is that the first thing you ask them?
Correct. Yeah. I want to make sure that we already know what kind of buying power we have before we even start looking.
Because what people don't realize, COVID really helped this part, to tell people you need to, before you can get into a home, you need to be pre-qualified or pre-approved. Different areas are different. That actually helped your industry to say, go see a lender, go get this taken care of. Where before people might take them out and show them homes and show them different homes. And then they come back to us and then we say, sorry, you can't afford those homes. Right.
Correct. And it also made people, like you said, more intentional buyers. Because it used to be, say you do an open house, like on a Saturday and a Sunday, and you'd start noticing you're seeing the same people coming through all the open houses. So you got the looky-loos, and now you have dedicated buyers because you have to go through the COVID protocols. You have to do the entry form that they have to sign. And I think that also helps too, because it makes people more comfortable with the e-signature process when you do get ready to actually write your first offer.
Right. And I was talking about this earlier because most people don't realize, but we have to pre-record our shows now for the radio, right? We used to be live, but because of the shutdown. And I was talking about how FICO score this time is so important, more than any other time in history, because of the COVID overlays. There's other stuff that we've done, but they were talking about the boom that we went through, how it's different. And we're not going to see a downturn because most of the buyers and the people who've done it, they have high FICO scores and they put money down. They're not doing 100% financing at 580 FICO scores like they did back in the 2006-7 years, where we don't have those programs anymore. So a lot of people are thinking, I'm going to wait this out and I'm going to wait for a downturn to buy. And I'm sad that's how I feel. They're not going to have that opportunity.
Yeah, I know initially when everything started shutting down, when you're not sure what industries are going to be kind of eliminated, you think there's going to be a softening of the market. But like you've discussed with me before, we're not seeing that. We're not seeing the inventory being built. And right now we're coming off a strong economy, and most folks still have their jobs. I know a lot of the service industry has been hit, but I know most other folks have maintained their jobs and even sometimes gotten increases. Because they're still having to come in the office, and it's a strong market.
Right. And we have a comment. Somebody was asking a question. I'll throw it on the screen. They're saying, how soon should they talk to a mortgage person when they're buying their first home? Their lease is up in October and we're hoping to buy our first home. Should we be talking to a real estate agent and mortgage broker now? I know my answer. What's your answer?
Immediately.
Yeah.
Let's start planning now.
Yeah. The moment you think you want to buy a house is the moment you contact us, right? To get that started, to see where you're at, because a lot of people want to go it alone and they want to work on their FICO scores by themselves. And that's great. But you need to talk to somebody like myself or somebody in our industry who can look at your credit, who can go, okay, well, I see these few things here. If you just do this, this, and this, we can get your score up so much higher. And I think that's so important from the beginning. And you just referred something to me, and that's the same thing we did. We sat down, we're doing all that information, and it's key from the beginning. No more, and it needs to be somebody local. And the reason I'm saying that is because sometimes and I'm not going to name names, but some of these companies will get you in there, say, oh, you're pre-qualified, you're pre-approved, and they haven't really done anything.
Yeah. And so I'll just as an example, when I bought my first home, it was 14 years ago. And that's the first thing I did was I got set up with a lender, and they pulled my credit score and they said, okay, you have some stuff, looks like it's old debt, but you need to work on this before we can even, get you pre-approved. And it took me about 6 months to fix my credit before I could start shopping. So I know what it's like being that first time buyer, and there might be some things on your credit from, your early teens, early 20s that you might not know about that have to be cleaned up to improve that before you can actually start purchasing a home.
Right. So you were an older buyer.
Yeah. I was 28. Yeah.
That's not too old. I mean, I bought my first home at 33, but that was a long time ago. You just helped one of the people in my office, and she was 24, which is, it's getting younger and younger. And we had somebody on the show last weekend who bought a really nice, up in Tuolumne County, and he's 28. And, that's how it should be. You should be focusing on, especially if you're single and you have, I'm renting, I don't care. So what? Buy a house, rent out the room. You're going to live with the roommate anyway. Have them pay you so that you don't have to make much of a mortgage payment. Now you're building your own personal wealth. And that's what's so key here is to build personal wealth through home ownership. And that's why I do what I do. And what most people don't know about you, Robert, and we talked about this before, is you really, coming from your background, you were in property management for how long?
For 15 years. Yeah.
Right. And so in property management, what people don't realize is you're coming in there, you're looking at people's properties, things come up, things break, these things happen. And you've learned over time what's really important that you need to look at so that when you're taking your buyer out, you can tell them, hey, look at that roof. That roof might need to be repaired. And, or that's a 25-year roof and we have 20 years left. or used up 20 years. There's only 5 years left. Sorry. And so there's a lot of stuff that you need to look at. And I didn't realize that's what you did. So what do you normally do when you take a client through a house as a buyer?
Well, so normally we try and look at houses during the day, because definitely the roof is something that concerns me. Sometimes even before we'll go out, I'll take a look at, like, say, like the Google Street View. You know right away if you see a shake roof, you're probably going to need a new roof soon. They
don't do shake roofs. They don't do shake roofs anymore, right?
No, and I think if they do, there's certain fire requirements that you have to sheet it in I think it's like a drywall almost, and then you put the shake on top of that, so it's more just for looks.
Okay.
Yeah, 30-year comp is all they do now too. They don't do 15-year comp.
Yeah. So all right, I apologize. So you look at the roof next. I'm sorry.
Yeah. So roof, I'll even just go around and take a look at the plumbing fixtures. I look under the sinks, just to see if you see any water damage. I know that's something they're going to catch on a home inspection, but it kind of gives us an idea if we even need to be kicking the tires on this house or just kind of move on. Another thing I see a lot is people who do quick flips, and they'll do like their own flips, and you can tell just the quality of craftsmanship if they've probably covered something up in an attempt to make it look good.
I mean, because there are in certain markets, who flips a house well, right? There's certain people who really do a good job when they're flipping houses, right? And there's other people who they don't. You can just their quality, who it is, because if it's not done properly, it's going to cause issues, right?
Yeah, it's gonna be a nightmare for whoever ends up buying the house. There's a guy I've dealt with him in the past, and he's a local investor, and he does the work himself, and it's pretty shoddy. But he's also one of those guys that wants to lowball and wants to list it at 3% commission that's split in between buyer and seller agent. So that kind of tells you right there, he's not about trying to flip a house and give someone a quality home. He's just trying to make a quick buck.
Right. So, and for most people who don't realize, there's so many programs out there for first-time home buyers. There's the 3% down conventional, there's CalHFA in California. There's a bunch of different programs, but in this market, it's really, you're competing against a lot of buyers who have 20% down. There's some people have cash. There's some people have 10% down, 5% down. So it's really hard to use some of those down payment assistance programs is what I'm seeing, unless you're a busy man, unless you're renting the house from somebody and they're giving you first right of refusal, like, hey, if you can buy the house, I'll give you a first look at it, and they'll do maybe a down payment assistance program because you're in it. But if you're competing against other people, I think those are the ones that don't get picked at all in this market.
In this market, it definitely it puts you down on the lower end. It makes it appear as though you're not really ready to purchase. Which I know, even like 5 years ago, that was pretty common. A lot of people were buying homes with down payment assistance.
Right. Yeah. Because someone just asked the same lady as earlier, do we need to have 20% down? And the answer is no. However, because there's VA with 0 down, there's USDA in some areas that's no money down, and then FHA is 3.5% down. And let's see, conventional 3%. So there's so many hardly any money down programs. It's just finding out what you can do, and that's where you need to start with talking to somebody first, so you can find out what you can do.
Yeah, and I think the 3% conventional. I know we discussed before how sellers they just naturally have in their mind conventional 20% down, conventional 20% down. So when they see someone with a conventional loan, even if it's 3%. They're thinking this person might be a stronger buyer. I've seen that perception before.
You mean then the FHA 3.5% down?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, unfortunately for myself, I'm a veteran, and VA loans there's do not disturb. You can do just unplug the back of the phone.
I'm taking the battery out.
It's just, you're in it's a busy time. We're so busy and people, and as this economy is opening up, right, there's all the stimulus money. Take your stimulus check, put it aside, pay some credit card off, put it aside, Use it for your down payment, use it for closing costs. Because a lot of people don't realize you have a down payment and then you have closing costs, right? And when I talk closing costs, those are things that are, have to, when you negotiate. So when you write a contract, I know I'm leading these questions. It's like I'm talking, When you write a contract, on there it says is it 50, what is the rule regarding escrow and title fees? You negotiate that with the seller? But it's standard in certain areas. What's the standard for Stanislaus County?
Standard is about 1 to 1.5%. So like if you're asking for closing costs, you're going to ask up to 2%.
No, I mean, okay, I didn't ask that right. So on the contract where it says seller will pay, buyer and seller will split escrow,
okay.
Those kind of things. What's standard in our area is 50, they split at 50-50.
Correct. Yeah. 50. Yeah.
All right. So and then what I try to explain to people, especially first time home buyers, your 50% of that, and that's what gets confused by a lot of buyers from their agents, is they don't understand the closing cost that they're paying that's on their statement is their 50%. Right.
Correct.
I've had many people come to me and say, no, they're paying 50%. So I only have to pay half of this. Right. No, that's your half. And on average, I tell people that's, $3,000 to $3,500, which is escrow and title fees. And it can be different in other areas. And then you have, if you're doing an impound account, and what an impound account is, it pays your taxes and insurance for you, so you don't have to, we have to set that up, and that could be another $3,000. So I tell people, besides your down payment, you could need another $6,500 to $8,500, depending on where you're going through.
Absolutely. And, that's the thing that I've seen so many times. So with first-time buyers, I always tell them, if you can have, say you're doing FHA, you have to have 3.5% down. If you can save another 2.5% to 3%, you're going to be safe. You're going to be good. And if you have money left over and you need new appliances, you have that cash on hand.
Right.
I know with my first VA loan, they said, "Oh yeah, no money down." And, I'm using my first VA loan. I'm 27 years old, and then it comes time for closing costs, and I had to borrow money, which then turned into a gift fund situation, which was a hassle. Right.
Right. Yeah. So, because there used to be a VA, what we used to call VA no money down, no money for closing costs. Right. What we would use is the interest rate to get yield, what we used to call yield served premium, to help to get, so if you could get 1 to 2 points from that to help pay closing costs. The problem is, in this market, you can't get that anymore because of how the pricing is and the risk base, and lenders don't want to give you that much money and then see you turn around 6 months later and refinance and get out of that loan.
Yeah.
Right.
So. Yeah. That was one of the things I was thinking about, when I was prepping for this right now, is that's probably the biggest thing I've seen is people don't save above and beyond. They're like, okay, I have my 3.5%, nothing else can possibly cost me more money. Right.
Right.
And that's, yeah.
Well, and we're on the show, we're going to have a home warranty company come on. And I think it's really important to get a home warranty with the house. What do you think about that?
Yeah, that's pretty much standard now. Whether you ask the seller to pay for that, or, if you're in negotiations and the seller is being tight-fisted, as the buyer's agent, sometimes they'll throw that in as a closing gift or something like that, Okay.
No, it just alleviates headache for the buyer, the agents on both sides. So I think even if the seller doesn't do it, I think everybody should kick in and help out. And the reason I say that is because, a hot water heater could go out real quick, right? That could be thousands of dollars, but if you have a home warranty, it's going to be a little bit, it's not going to be as much, because you'll have your service fee and then whatever additional codes you have to do. But we had our air conditioning heater go out, right? That was a $8,000 unit. Yikes. Well, we had a home warranty and it cost us $1,200, right? Because as you had a air conditioner that's been on there since, the late 80s, early 80s. And then now you've had new permits come out, new things that happen. It's on this roof. So I had to have a crane, had all this other stuff. So, I mean, that saved us so much money. And that's why I explain to people, you want to get a home warranty. Even after that 1 year, you want to contact that company and extend it and keep doing it. Because what if your garbage disposal goes out? You can get it done for $75. You can't call a plumber to do that, nor do I want to do that. So,
yeah, and I believe that over time, as you renew it, I think the coverage decreases. It doesn't.
No, that's why you want to contact them, so there's the ones that you guys get, right? But if you contact the same rep that's selling, they do the same ones. Because I put it on when I had I put it on when I had rentals, right? So that way I didn't have to deal with getting a handyman to come in and do anything. If we had, garbage disposal break, this kind of stuff, I would just call up, pay the payment, and then have them call and schedule the time with the renter, and that just made it so much easier.
Yeah, and the service fee of like I think most of them are around $75.
Yeah, they keep going up.
A plumber is going to cost you, I think standard's about $160 right now.
An hour,
That's for
right?
that's for any service call. That's to come out and clear a drain, anything.
Right. Yeah. I mean, they're gonna, so that's $75, right? But most of those guys are 89 plus an hour, right? So just
easy.
Yeah. And then don't ever get it done in an hour.
Oh, for that. Yeah, they wouldn't make any money that way.
Right.
But that's another thing that I think most agents provide a service to their first-time buyers of having those contractors that they've worked with in the past, that if they do have problems, they can send them in the right direction. Especially like plumbing and electrical contractors. I know those are the two things that people don't like to mess with.
All right. So now we're on like these type of issues. If I was buying my first time home and you're my agent, what do you have done? Okay. So as a lender, we do the appraisal. That's a totally different inspection, right?
Yeah.
What do you have done for for your buyers regarding inspections?
I always tell them that we need to at least have a home inspection. I almost always recommend a 2-year roof cert, or at least a roof inspection, depending on what the report says. If they're out in the country, definitely recommend a septic. There's only been once I've seen a septic not have an issue with a leach line, especially if they've been in the ground for a long time. And I know those inspections add up, but I always explain to them that the inspection and trying to get repaired before we close is going to be, much more beneficial to you.
Right. It's like, I'm sorry, Robert. And I was going to say, it's like buying a car from somebody in a private market and not taking it to a mechanic before you actually buy it. Right.
Correct. Yes.
Yeah. Oh, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with it. And then you buy it. Next thing you know, certain things, the rings are broken. It does, you never know. So with the house, I think it's very important to have the home. What about pest inspection? Are those pretty much standard these days?
Yeah. Pest inspection, definitely, because you're going to want to look for termites and any kind of mold. And obviously, they'll look at dry rot. They'll call things like that. And it really helps the buyer when it comes to negotiating and asking for repairs, because you have these professional reports.
Well, plus, what you're getting into, right? I mean, yeah. I always say the inspection report, when you do an inspection, their job is to, and I always get in trouble for this, but to tell you that your baby is ugly, right? Yeah. So nobody's baby is ever ugly, but their job is to tell you that this house is horrible. These are all your issues. And then you have to sit down with yourself, with your agent, and go through them and say, okay, it's really not that bad. That is their job, to show all those things, right? To tell you everything that could possibly be wrong with this house, even if it's just a minute little thing, they want to bring it up so you're aware of it and they didn't miss anything.
Yeah, and with sellers, I try and let them know ahead of time. These reports, and especially like inspections, the same thing. They're going to tell you that there's everything wrong with this house, and then they take it very personally. But they have to understand it's a transaction. They're selling it.
Right. And it's when you're selling your house, it is no longer your home. It's a house. Right. And when you're buying it is your home.
It's a home.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
One other thing on the idea of additional expenses, and I see this come up almost every time, is the supplemental tax bill.
Oh, yeah.
Normally shows up about 2 months after you've closed. And that's something that everyone should set aside money for too.
Well, let me add on to that. All right. So what we do is, as a lender, we set the taxes, if it has an impound account, to what the tax rate's supposed to be at. The problem is the county does not know that their property is sold. And sometimes it can take up to 18 months for them to know. And then you get the supplemental tax bill you talked about. And basically what happens then is you have two choices. If it comes, if it comes and you've already received a check from your lender saying this is extra money from your impound account, that supplemental tax bill, then you need to pay it because you received money back from that impound account. If you did not receive the money back from an impound account yet, call up your current lender, say, I've got these supplemental taxes, and then 9 times out of 10, they'll tell them to send it in, and they'll take care of it. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah, I mean, during that, I remember in like 2005 and 2004 time, it was, I could swear it was like almost 2 years. I mean, they're so far behind because so many houses being sold. Yeah. They wouldn't know for so long, and people would get their money back from the impound account and then call me up and say, hey, I just got this tax bill. And that same thing, did you ever get a check back from your current lender? Right. And they're like, oh yeah, well, that was the $2,000 that you're supposed to be paying this with. So,
and I'll tell clients, like right when we're getting ready to close, I'll say, Okay, in 2 months from now, you're going to get a bill, and it's because they've reassessed the value of your property at the sale. And, and I think like average right now with the median home prices is about 1,200.
Right. Well, the issue is what people don't realize. So you pay the current taxes out of what the seller was paying, not what you're supposed to be paying. That's the difference. That's a supplemental tax bill.
Yeah.
The tax rate that what the seller was paying at versus the county catching up that, hey, no, your tax rate is now this. The difference between that two, as long as you've been owning that house, is what the supplemental tax bill is.
Yes. Yeah. That's the one thing I always just try and lay out, because I remember, the first time I bought my house and I got, an $800 bill. I called my agent, because that was before I was in the business. Yeah. She explained it to me.
Yeah. And what most of the time, if it's within that first, you haven't received money back, they haven't because what they do is every year they look at your impound account to see if there's extra money in there that they're taking too much. One of the issues we found that if you can get away with just doing your taxes in there, just do your taxes in there. The one issue that messes with people's payments and changes everything is usually the insurance. And especially up in like Tuolumne County, where insurance just changes constantly because of whether there's a fire or not a fire, what's going on this year, that year. I've found that if you can get away with not putting the insurance in, then don't. Sometimes you have to, but I'm just saying if you can get away with it. So.
Yeah. I saw a listing up in Folsom recently. And in the notes, it was saying that the insurance was like $2,700 annually. I was like, wow, that's really high, but it has to be.
That's cheap. That's cheap.
Is it even in a fire area? Really?
Yeah, it's very cheap in a fire area because it's been getting cheaper. Like in Tuolumne County, because when we first came out, we first bought our cabin up there 7 years ago, I was paying Lloyd's of London $3,000 a year. Right. Wow. That was 7 years ago. And that was only we'd bought it for $197. So there wasn't much value at that time. Right. Since then they've skyrocketed and went up. And I mean, it's probably 400,000 now in that 7-year period. But then I found USAA because I'm a veteran, and it dropped my insurance from that. Because what happened is Lloyd's of London came out after 2 years and canceled our policy because of all the trees around our place. So so I called USAA, and they actually set us up for $856 a year versus $3,000 with and that $3,000 with Lloyd's of London was like the worst policy you could ever get. You have to cover 30 or 40,000 of the damage up front, and then but it had insurance. Since then, they have went up a little bit, and I think I'm paying now $1,500 a year for that, which I'm still good with because it's a cabin in a fire area. But there's two policies in some areas in California, and this is not just in Tuolumne County or up in Folsom or even in San Diego and San Marcos and some of those places that back up to wild areas. There is what a fair plan now in California, or I call the unfair plan. Basically, that covers. So you have to have two policies. You have to have a regular policy and then a fair plan, which does the fire part of it. And there's two policies, and sometimes those could equal up to 3,000 or more. So you really need to know I always tell everybody, I figure in certain areas, like here, we only figure $65 to $75 a month for insurance. In certain counties in California that have that fire rating, or possibly could, I'm starting at 200 just to be safe. Right. And if you find better, like it's been coming down, but if we get a fire, it's going to go back up, but we just haven't had a fire, in a while. Thank goodness.
Now with the insurance, if you create like a larger defensible space around your property in a fire area, is that going to decrease the amount, or they're just going to keep you insured?
They're just going to keep you insured because the fire people come through and say, get that stuff off your house. You got to, they'll fine you, all the fire people come through and they'll put a note. You have 30 days to clear this out. And, because then pine needles keep falling. I wish we could cut a lot of trees, but we did buy a different piece of property to build our forever home on up there in Twain Harte, and it's 32 acres. That's different where we're building that. There is no pine trees anymore. We got rid of all of them. So we didn't have that issue. Yeah. Yeah. So
a beautiful area up there.
Oh, it's a great area, but it's just right now what people don't realize, because a lot of people are coming to me to build and do construction loans, right? But now with the cost of lumber up 130%, where a 2x4 used to cost $1.99, now it could be up to $12. It's very costly. It would have cost us $150,000 more just to build that house this year. So go ahead.
I was gonna say, how are the permit fees up there? Have they gone up a lot too?
I think we had to pay 16,000 for school fees. And I'm like, I have no kids to go to your school. Why do I have to pay 16,000 for school fees? Or, it's the same thing. I was talking to somebody else last night and they were saying how, it's not the fees that's the problem. It's how long it takes to have the dirt done and everything else. And I'm like, I think it's all of it. I think the fees are, especially in our area, Stanislaus County, I think the fees are costly. And I think the process needs to be streamlined. And that's, I think, in certain, because I have friends of mine in Las Vegas and Texas. They're like, hey, we've got tons of home. Come out here and buy because we can build all the time. Much easier to build, cheaper. But like you talked about, in certain places, nobody's building a 3-bedroom, 2-bath home, right? They're 4 bedrooms, they're extra, 2.5 baths, they're bigger houses. They're the move, not really the first time home buyer, but they're usually the move up buyer. The problem we run into in our area, first time home buyers, people don't realize this, but when they buy a home, they take it out of the market, right? When you have a move up buyer, they buy another home, but they leave one for somebody else to buy. And that's what we're running into right now. First time home buyers are going to be making up to almost 40% of the market. So that means that's 40% of homes that are going to be gone for, 10 to 15 years, maybe 20 years before they do anything with them.
I'm curious to see how that works out because, so on the other side, managing an apartment complex, right? We have no problem with vacancy. We're typically running about 1% vacant. So it's like, where are all these people? And we have people that are moving out and buying homes, but we still have, tons of renters.
Right. Yeah. It's the same. That's all over. It's 1% vacancy factor everywhere. There's just not enough homes. So they need to build more apartment complexes, more multifamily, more of that stuff too, on top of single family homes. There's a lot of building that needs to happen. And I don't know when that's going to happen. And I think that's going to be a problem for the next few years.
Yeah, I know that there was a lot that I had listed for a year and a half, and it finally got it sold, and we had to negotiate down on the sell price because the guy is a developer, and he explained to me all the permit fees. It was going to cost him about $250,000 by the time he stubbed utilities and had it graded because it was zoned for R2. And I was like, man, well, no wonder they're not building multifamily housing around here. It's too expensive.
Well, they are, but they're building in other like Manteca and other places to where it's a little bit more expensive to rent, right? Because I have a past client they're building all over multifamily everywhere. Every place they can find a piece of dirt, they're going to build on. But think about it. That's an R2, right? That just means 2 units. Think about that for just a single family home. What are the permit fees? 150, 200,000, right?
Probably roughly.
So, if you can't build a house for 400,000 and just the permit and certain fees and you haven't talked about the lot cost. You haven't talked about the building costs. You haven't talked about, you can't see my hands. I'm trying to count on them. There's so many other things. That's why people don't realize it's the people who come in and remodel older house and do it well as a flipper. They're doing a service for us because that's a perfect home for a first time home buyer. These builders just can't build them cheap enough because of the cost that's involved. And I think that's where we need to look at in California and other places. How do we get those costs down so that they can build more homes?
So growing up in Manteca, 20, 25 years ago, if you had told me that, houses were selling for $500,000 there, I would have laughed, because at the time there was maybe 40,000 people there. But, as they keep pushing the Bay Area further and further out, Mountain House is too exorbitant. So now people are moving Lathrop, Manteca. How first-time homebuyers are going to buy there, I don't know, unless they are, coming from the Bay.
Right. And a lot of people cannot work from home, right, for a while. I think it's a 3-year process myself. I think it's the first year we were just at. And then in the second year, they're going to be asked to start coming back into the office. The third year, they're going to won't want to be commuting. So next thing you know, we're going to have some homes around here for sale. I still don't think that's enough of those people, but I'm just saying I see that it's a process. So,
yeah, there's definitely an ebb and flow to it because I know that, about 5 years ago is when we started seeing a lot of Bay Area folks moving out here, right? Because home prices were so high there. But now we're hearing that rates have dropped by as much as like 24% in the Bay Area as far as rental rates.
Really?
And so the rental market moves, overnight. I always say that the housing market lags at normally about 6 months to a year for it to catch up. So I'm guessing we're going to see a softening of the market in the Bay, and then more people are going to say, hey, I've been commuting, but I can afford a house back there again. They're going to start moving back. And it's kind of like a tide, like a 10-year tide, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. And that just means more people will be able to buy here because they're not competing against those people in other areas. The Bay Area people are coming here. Yeah. So I see that too, but I don't, because the Bay Area, softening. They're you get a shack for $1.5 million, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm curious to see what it looks like, in another year.
Right. Because I did some refinances over there, and these guys, I'm shocked at what their houses came in at, close to $2 million, and they were nothing more than a single family home, ranch style from, a long time ago. And it's like, wow, that's just, I don't want to say ridiculous, but in that area, so the question is, do they make enough to pay the mortgage? Right. Because $1 million is like $5,000 a month.
Yeah, I know it's insane. It's money that we'd never think about spending on the house, right?
Yeah, well, I used to live in Southern California, so I used to live down there.
Oh, that's right, San Diego.
Yeah. So, go ahead.
I was going to say I have some friends that are up in Tahoe, and they've been trying to buy for the last 2 years now, and they said this last year has been terrible because so many folks, since they're working from home, they're leaving the Bay Area and they're buying nice houses in Tahoe. So that market's even tighter up there. And that one's permit fees and everything goes along with trying to go.
Right. So we're having a little breakup here. Breakup's hard to do.
Oh, okay.
You're good now. So you're talking about Tahoe and your friend, I heard that same thing too, that all the people from the Bay were going up to Tahoe to buy, and now made that market even tighter than it was before.
Yeah.
And I think it's everywhere. I think that's just, there's, again, not enough homes. Interest rates are still so low compared to where, they've ever been. Yeah, we've had them lower, but they're still, I saw the other day, I'm quoting, still a 3.25 or 3.375 rate that you see out there that Fannie and Freddie are quoting. These are the rates. That's still, I don't want to say ridiculously low, but when I've been in this business a long time. I always say I was thinking people from 13 to 9 and they love me. And now if I quote somebody at 3%, they think I'm taking advantage of them. Right. But it has allowed people to buy more and have less of a payment, right? Or even the people that we've refinanced in the last year, their payments went down $400 or $500 on some of these, and they ended up doing 20 years and 15 years, so they could pay their house a lot sooner. And that's what these lower rates are doing, so that people can qualify for the house they want, and then they can even set it up down the road to make those payments for a 20-year loan. So,
yeah,
Robert,
I know. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I know with my last VA loan, 4%, that was pretty incredible. And what are VAs down to right now?
It could be 2.5, 2.625, right around there, depending on what you're doing. It just depends on your FICO score. As I keep saying, if yes, we can do FICO scores down to 580 for VA, but we don't want to because the pricing is so ugly. If you have a 680 FICO score, it's a totally different price point than it is at 640 or 620. So no matter who you are, if you're thinking about buying a home, the first step is to talk to somebody about qualifying you for a home loan and seeing what you can qualify for. Once you're approved, once they look at your credit and fix you up, then you need to get referred to a really good agent like Robert here. And I'm not just saying that lightly. He is a Navy vet, just like I am, but that's not why I'm recommending him. He's really good at what he does. And he really believes in the community, and he's connected here in Modesto and in our area. So it's very important. So what that means is with local people like myself and you, they could, if they were mad at us, they don't have to try to call us. They could walk into our office and find us, right? Not that people are going to be mad at us.
No.
But when they want to send the baskets for being so happy, and they can just send them right to our office. Yeah.
I like cookies.
I want to say I love turtles. Remember that? Anyway. A lot of people might not say that video. Oh, do they?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
I like turtles.
So yeah, I love turtles. Anyway, that was so funny, that kid. What do you think about I love to anyway, that's great. All right, so we talked about a bunch of stuff today. We went a little bit, and I really appreciate you being on the radio last weekend.
My pleasure.
People don't realize that, people want to know more information about buying homes, buying that kind of stuff, because that's how they build personal wealth. So what would you recommend before we go? Anything else you want to throw out there for these people to think about?
Well, the idea of buying a home the first time is scary, but if you get with the right agent, and there's a lot of good agents here in town, but I'm always happy to help. Most agents are going to have a network of contractors, like we're talking about, people who can fix things. Because that's the number one objection I hear is, oh, well, I don't know how to fix anything. So what if something breaks? Is that going to cost me a ton of money? Well, in between your home warranty and knowing people that know people, that normally takes away most of the fear of people buying a home for the first time. And like you said, you can either keep paying rent for an indefinite amount of time or start building some equity.
Yeah. I was talking to a lady yesterday, and she was saying how she heard, she keeps hearing this. I'm like, who is this? And where are you hearing this? I'm like, stop listening, stop Googling stuff, stop going online, contact somebody like, me, or you talk to some, ask somebody in your family, who did you use? Who is the person you recommend? Go to them, talk to them, and find out, because she was saying how the friends of hers, they fell out escrow. Well, that doesn't normally happen if you're qualified properly, right? If you get a pre-approval, we DU, which is direct underwriting, or LP, which is from Freddie Mac and Fannie Mae. It's automated underwriting engines. We all put it out in those. It comes back and says, if you provide these things, this person can have a loan. Well, we do that on pre-quals. We do that on pre-approvals. I never do a pre-qual. Sorry, I'm so used to the wrong term. Pre-approvals, we do that on so that when you're ready to go, you're ready to go. There is the only time you don't want to go forward on that house is if you find out the appraisal came in lower, or there's something you find out through the inspection, but it's not because of what we do or get you in. Nobody should ever waste anybody's time. Right. It's so important in my industry as a loan person that you make sure that if your people get into contract, that contract closes. Don't waste the buyer's agent time. Don't waste the listing agent's time. Don't waste the buyer's time. Don't waste the seller's time. That is time that you should not waste of anybody. And you should make sure that you go with the right person so that doesn't happen.
Yeah, and that is the one thing that you got to think about is there's a lot of skin in the game, and we're representing the people that are putting the skin in the game. So say something falls out of escrow, they're out of those inspection and fees and things that they paid like that, they're not going to be reimbursed for. So making sure that they're ready to go and qualified and both parties are in agreement is great. Yeah.
I really appreciate you coming on to one of our first Real Estate Jerky Lives. Thank you for being here today.
Thank you, Ed. I appreciate it.
No problem. And I think we're going to go unless you have anything else to put out there. But when I log off, please stay on. All right. And if you guys are listening, if you're on watching this on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and send it out to somebody else and share it. Thank you. And we really appreciate you watching today. Thank you.